Hello sunflowers! Today we're going to try out 3 different types of scrubby yarn and see which one makes the best scrubbies for washing dishes. Step 1, I am going to crochet the little dishcloth scrubby things, and I'm going to rank them on crochetability, which ones feel the best to work with. And then Josh is going to be trying out the dishcloth scrubbies that I make on actual dirty dishes to see which one works the best. Today we're going to be looking at Scrubby Sparkle by Red Heart, Scrubby Stripes, also by Red Heart, and Scrub Off by Sugar and Cream. I'm going to start with Scrubby Sparkle. My theory is this one's going to feel the worst to crochet with, but I think it's going to do the best on the dishes. Of course, I'm going to use my little crochet spinning tool. If you haven't seen my video trying weird crochet tools so you don't have to, I will link it above. Let's start out talking about the price. I got these yarns at Joann's and they were all about $5 to $6 per skein. But if you're shopping on Amazon, they're gonna be a little bit more expensive. This one on Amazon is about $7.50. I don't like how this feels. It feels very weird. I debated a lot on how I wanted to crochet these scrubbies. I started with a magic circle and then I just crocheted in the round using half double crochets. And I think this is gonna give us a really good texture for our dishcloth. I actually hate how this feels on my hands. Icky, icky. I don't like it. Something I don't like about the crochetability of this yarn, especially if you're a beginner, is it's really difficult to see where you're supposed to crochet through. So I was still able to figure it out, but it definitely took a second. I think I'm gonna crochet a little loop on each of these. That way they can be like hung up to dry. I always wish that scrubbies had something like this on them because when they're just in the sink and they get kind of icky, this would like allow them to be like hung up. Overall for the Scrubby Sparkle, I think I have to rank this like a 5 out of 10 for crochetability. A lot of people crochet scrubbies for people for Christmas, like for stocking stuffers. Like I can't imagine using this yarn over and over and over again if you were going to crochet like 15 of these for different friends. I feel like your hands would start getting really sore and just icky feeling from the texture. Another downside, like I've mentioned, it's really hard to see where you're supposed to crochet through. So if you are a beginner crocheter, I don't think that I would start with this scrubby yarn. Having said all of that, this feels like a scrubby. I theorize that this is going to be the best scrubby yarn for actually cleaning your dishes. But Josh is going to be the judge of that. Let's move on to yarn 2. At first glance, the Scrubby Stripe looks like it's the same price as the Scrubby Sparkle, but it's actually not. The price per skein is almost identical, with it being about $8 on Amazon and about $5.50 at Joann's. But this skein of yarn is significantly smaller. I actually hate this. I hate this a lot. Now it does feel significantly better on my hands so far, but I cannot explain to you how hard it is to see what I'm doing. So especially like crocheting in the round like this where I need to be counting. So for my second round, I'm doing 2 half double crochets into each hole. And then my third round, I'll do 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Usually I know if I lose count, I can just look at it and see how many did I crochet into each loop. You can't see anything, literally anything. I don't even know if I'm crocheting into the right spot right now. I think I just picked up another loop and I don't even know where I picked it up. Something I'll say about this yarn though is that even though it's advertised as a dishcloth yarn, I feel like you could actually just make regular washcloths out of this. I personally would not want a washcloth made out of this material, but this material I feel like could give you like a nice, soft, exfoliating washcloth. This is just a personal preference, but I kind of hate that I'm already in my second round and that my yarn hasn't changed colors yet. Like I know I started with that little bit of blue. When I'm using a skein of yarn that changes colors, especially like this, where this yarn is pretty much designed to just make small things like washcloths and dishcloths, I want it to change colors more rapidly than this. I would love it if at least every row this was switching colors rather than being on my, wait, I'm actually on my 3rd row. I'm on my 3rd row and it hasn't changed colors yet. I don't personally like that. I feel like half these stitches are in the wrong spot. But as long as it doesn't fall apart, no one's gonna know because I can't even tell. I'm on the 4th row, which means I'm almost done and I'm just now getting to switch to my second color. I just feel like this would be beautiful if it had switched colors a lot, and instead, I don't like how this looks aesthetically. Not that that matters for scrubbing dishes, but I want it to be cute. I am at the end. I crocheted in the round 4 times, the same exact as before, and they honestly ended up about the same size. I hate to say it, but this is my least favorite yarn I've ever worked with. It was so difficult to see where in the world I needed to push my hook through every time. Like, I thought this was bad. This was at least twice as hard. And once again, I know that this is just a personal preference, but I hate how long it takes for this yarn to change colors, especially knowing it's going to be used for small things like this. It's so funny looking at this and just knowing that I messed up. Do you see how I definitely did too many increases there compared to probably too few here? Like, this one looks like so much more of a perfect circle, and this one just looks a little bit offset. Like, once again, it doesn't matter. We're washing dishes with these, and this doesn't have to be aesthetic. I just really thought that all these colors were gonna make such a cute scrubby, and then I only get to use like kind of 3. I don't like this yarn. I really don't like it. I think it's probably gonna wash dishes pretty well, but for crochetability, I have to give this a 3 out of 10. I am not a fan. Moving on to our final skein of yarn before they're put to the scrub test. We have our Scrub Off yarn by Sugar and Cream. This is another one that I think could definitely be a washcloth or a dishcloth. I think it's interesting that this yarn has multiple different textures, and I'm just curious to see how it's gonna crochet. At Joann's, this yarn was also about $5.50, and the length of this skein is longer than the Scrubby Stripes, but shorter than the Scrubby Sparkle. So it'll be somewhere in between those two prices on like price per foot. If you're looking at Amazon, this was like kind of confusing because they had some skeins of this yarn for as cheap as like $4 and then some as expensive as $8. So I would just say shop around whenever you're looking for this yarn, especially if you need to get a lot of it. Ew, 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 I don't like how this feels on my hands. This stuff, it almost feels like it's like sticky, even though it's not sticky. Ew, I don't like it. Ooh, but I do like that it's already changing colors. That's cool. So I mentioned that it feels sticky. Like, I can even show you right here when I'm trying to pull the tail for the magic circle to close it tight. It's like almost sticking. It's like not wanting to be pulled tight. Oh my gosh, where in the world am I supposed to crochet in on this? This just looks like a piece of fabric. I thought the last two were bad. This one might be the worst. I thought this one was gonna be easier. But on the plus side, look at that color change. You know, that makes me happy. The way that I actually can't see where I'm supposed to be crocheting. Maybe I should have done this with like a hook that's bigger than what they requested. Then I could like more easily see the hole that I'm supposed to be going through. I love that it just randomly, awkwardly switches from this like textured yarn into like a smooth yarn that just feels like a normal like worsted weight yarn. I feel like something strange is that it doesn't just change texture, it also kind of drastically changes thickness. So like the really textured yarn was like super thin, and then this part of the yarn is now super thick. This feels weird. This is very, very interesting. Such a crazy large portion of this is just with like regular yarn. It's just regular yarn. Like, I feel like it's gonna get gross. I don't feel like it's like a texture or a material that's gonna dry out well or that's gonna like work well to like scrub dishes. I just don't know. I don't know how I feel about this one. What do you think, Tilly? Do you like this one? Yeah, I don't like that one either. What do you think about this one? You don't care about that one? That's understandable. It's all scratchy, not a fun toy. What about this one? Tilly kind of likes that one. We've been practicing Tilly not attacking the yarn while she sits in my lap, and look at her, she's doing such a good job. Is she doing so good? I will say if you have a cat, getting one of these things is really handy because this prevents the yarn from like flying all around the room and having them attack the yarn. Doesn't it, baby girl? She's like, yeah, it's no fun. It's no fun at all. Oh, we're about to switch back into the textured yarn for like the last like 10 stitches. Make our little loop on the end. Good job. I really thought she was gonna go for it that time. And that completes our third little dish scrubby. I think on crochetability, I have to rank this one a 4 because obviously crocheting with a worsted weight yarn part of this is super easy. But crocheting with the textured part of this yarn was even worse than the last yarn. It was just awful. These rankings are out of 10, not out of 5. So none of these yarns got that high of a crochetability ranking from me. The Red Heart Scrubby Sparkle is definitely my favorite. Looking back on it, it was actually the easiest one to use. I did only give this a 5, and I do stand by this basically just because it is still a little hard to see the holes that you're crocheting through, and it's a little bit of like a rough material on your skin if you're going to be crocheting with this for a long period of time. I love you. I love you lots. The Red Heart Scrubby Stripes was definitely my least favorite. It was very difficult to work with and almost impossible to see where you're supposed to crochet through. And just aesthetically, I don't like how the color changing part of this looks. I don't think that it looks good, so I do stand by my 3 out of 10 for this. And lastly, Scrub Off by Sugar and Cream. I give this a 4. The textured part, while I think it is probably gonna do pretty good for doing dishes, it's terrible to crochet with. Obviously this like just normal worsted weight yarn is completely fine to crochet with, but you're only getting that about half the time. And if it was just a normal worsted weight yarn, it wouldn't be a scrubby yarn. So if I'm only looking at crochetability, the Red Heart Scrubby Sparkle takes the cake. Definitely the best for crochetability, which actually shocks me. I thought I was gonna like the other two so much more, and then I was like, ugh, I don't. But crochetability is only half of what we're looking at. Let's go to Josh to test out their scrubability.
And now it is my turn. So we know how difficult / easy they are to crochet with, but now how difficult / easy are they to clean with? I'll try my best here. There's more scientific ways to do this, but we're doing it this way. I don't usually sit when washing the dishes. I was just trying to fit in the frame because I'm tall. I have a glove on. Let's do it gloveless. Let's talk about the experience. Not everyone washes dishes with gloves. Not everyone's like me. Before we use Scrubby Sparkle, we're gonna use the thing that I usually use on my dishes, and we're gonna see how the rest of them compare to big old Smiley here. A few good scrubs, and it pulled it off pretty well. So now let's move on to our Scrubby Sparkle. It's already wet, already has soap. We're gonna go along this edge here. Oh, wow. That was actually really good. Let's move on to Scrubby Stripes. Get it wet. One spray of soap. Initial feelings, this also feels like it'll be a really grippy material to use. Probably pull off a lot of gunk. We'll go to this side, completely dry. Okay. Okay. Shows up against the white pretty well, but it took stuff off just as well as the others so far. Now we're gonna go with the scrub off. It's already wet, already has soap, and we're just gonna finish it off. Okay, so far they all kind of worked pretty well, but this bowl cleaned up pretty easily. So I think that this is gonna be the real challenge. We're gonna start off with our control in a random area up here. Remember this is our control zone. I'm gonna go right in with Scrubby Sparkle right below it. I feel like I can grip the beans and things easily with this one. I really like that. Next, we're gonna go in with Scrubby Stripes, and we're gonna do this left quadrant here. Ooh, there's a lot of loose stuff. And finally, Scrub Off. Oh, wow, okay. First look, they kind of all did the job. You might see some stuff down here, but I didn't scrape that area. That would have been Scrubby Sparkle. If I hit that with Scrubby Sparkle, comes right off. So honestly, they all perform the same, it feels like, in regards to removing grime. That stuff was dried and stuck on. By hand, I could not get it, but all 4 of these did really well. So what about hand feel? Our control rinsed off really easily. Let's see how well these rinse off, because we don't necessarily want a bunch of food just kind of lingering in these over time. So I'm gonna give this a good Scrubby Sparkle. Pretty easy to clean out. Held on to a couple things, a second rinse, and it was all clear. Let's move on to Scrubby Stripes. This one feels a little funny. This one feels like nice because of how pokey it is. I don't know how to describe that. That kind of scratchy thing. I don't know. I like how that feels. This feels kind of like a little wet animal-ish. Very strange. We're gonna rinse it out. Okay, that rinsed out way better than I thought it would. I thought this was gonna be really stained, but no, it's kind of returned to its normal colors, and yeah, I like that. Nice. Now for Scrub Off. This one feels the most like cotton. This feels like this was just made with regular yarn, which is cool. It's cool that it feels that way, but let's see if it rinses out easily. It cleaned really well. Let's go for it. Wow, that's kind of just falling off. That's cool. Give it some tugs. Yeah, that actually rinsed out really quickly. This is not easy. Scrub off did well also. Final thoughts, some tactile thoughts here. One, this scratches my brain. This feels nice. This feels like even when it's cold, it feels like normal to hold. It feels like a cleaning utensil. There's a familiarity with this fabric yarn, this yarn. This feels a little moppy, and so if you like that boom, it feels more natural. You know, it doesn't feel as synthetic. This feels very synthetic. I like it because it's like associated with cleaning products to me. This one feels, yeah, it's just it's a little hairy. It feels like hair, fur almost, while this just feels like what it looks like. It feels like tinsel almost, and nothing came off. I was really worried we'd see a bunch of blue little things floating around after that. No, we were good. And this feels like cotton. This feels like something that you made with just some yarn you had lying in your yarn basket, which is cool. And what's nice is it has just a little bit of that kind of rougher material in the center, in the sides. So my final rankings, everything cleaned kind of the same, it felt like. So mostly it's just gonna come down to feel and what would I grab if I had these lying down at the sink when I was washing dishes. And in first place, I have Scrubby Sparkle. I really like this. It feels like it's meant to be used for this. I like it a lot. It makes my hands happy when I hold it. In second place, I'm going with Scrub Off. Scrub Off. It feels nice. It feels like you just grabbed a cloth, you know, from underneath the sink, and you just decide to clean with that. It's nice. It's familiar, just in a different way, you know? This Scrubby Stripes, I like the look of it. I do not like how it feels for me. I'll put it in third, but it did a good job. So I would say just feel all three of these if you're trying to do this yourself, and just choose your favorite, because all three did the job pretty well. I couldn't tell a difference, at least in this limited testing. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. I have no clue how that went. Editor Holly, hi. I put Scrubby Sparkle in first, Scrub Off in second, and Scrubby Stripes in third. That is a tongue twister right there. All right, thanks for having me. Bye.
It has been about 24 hours since Josh did our scrubbability test. And while I did crochet little loopies on our scrubbies so they could be hung up to dry, I recognize that that's not always going to be the case. Sometimes they're going to be just left on the counter. So our third and final test is the counter test. Let's take a look at our Scrubby Sparkle. This thing is completely dry, like completely dry. Doesn't smell at all. This is perfect. This feels exactly like it did. There's really no food on it that I can see. It looks brand new. It looks exactly like it did when we made it. Scrubby Sparkle, 10 out of 10. Next, moving on to Scrubby Stripes. This is a little damp, mostly dry, but I would say it's still like 5% damp. That one held on to some smell. Not terrible, but definitely not nothing. For the countertop test, I think I have to give the Scrubby Stripes a 6 out of 10. Yeah, it just smells a tiny bit funky, just a little bit funky. Lastly, our poor Scrub Off. This thing is completely soaked. I would have thought that I just dumped this in water. It doesn't necessarily smell, but I can't imagine keeping this wet, just sitting on your counter. Y'all, Scrub Off. This is not looking good, friend. It's literally soaking wet. You can't tell it all in the camera, but it feels like I just dunked it in water and it's been almost 24 hours. Scrub Off for the counter test. I've got to give you a 1 out of 10. Ugh. Literally feel like I need to wash my hands. I averaged out our rankings in the 3 categories and we have a very, very clear winner. Coming in third place with a total average of 3.3 out of 10, we have Scrub Off. Coming surprisingly in second with an average of 4 out of 10, we have Scrubby Stripes. The countertop test really gave this one a boost because it was not doing well in the first 2 categories. And our extremely clear winner with a 7.3 out of 10 is our Scrubby Sparkle. Another good thing about Scrubby Sparkle is at least everywhere I have seen these being sold, this is actually the cheapest scrubby yarn per foot out of the 3 of these. So not only are you getting the best scrubby yarn in my opinion, but it's also gonna be the cheapest. As y'all know, I still have my qualms with this yarn. I do think that it's a little bit difficult to see where you're crocheting into. I do think that it doesn't feel the best on your hands whenever you're crocheting with it, so if you are making a bunch of scrubbies, just maybe take breaks in between, because this part of my hand was definitely getting sore while I was using it. But overall, I feel like a 7.3 out of 10 for the Scrubby Sparkle yarn by Red Heart is a very, very fair assessment. And if you are going to be buying a scrubby yarn, this is the one that I would recommend. If you're still here, Tilly thinks that you should hit all the buttons and do all of the things. If you're new here, I'm Hollyana, and once again, this is Tilly. Welcome to the Sunflower family. We'll see you in the next one.